And as you know, the guys that basically pay and do the actual live load testing is your fire escape guy, your firefighters. This is what they use to get in a building, or this is what they use to get out of a building in case all hell breaks loose. So our focus today, are you the building department?
I am.
Yeah. So our job is what we do in a lot of these classes. We make them aware of just what you guys do when you're stepping on these things. And this piece that actually came from the school with children till the 8th grade, I actually took it off this year out of a school they were using it till the day we took it out. And what we talk about is just some of the challenges that you have on a fire escape that's put outside 50, 75 years ago. A lot of guys, depending on what kind of money they get, will fix it in a couple of different ways. You give me a little money, I'll bring a bucket of paint, I'll bring some silicone, I'll hide this, I'll hide that, I'll fill this in, I'll smash this back in, I'll weld wherever I can. You give me more money, then I'll open this up, remove all this rust, put in a new bolt, and give you some guarantees. So the code right now has been pretty much abused a lot. The guys that are falling through, because we do a lot of cases where it's a fireman that falls through the stairs. It's a collapse here that happened in, you remember that thing in Marlborough Street? In 73, we got a picture of that in our booklet. And basically one of these fell, and it was a 2-for-1 special that day. It got the fireman who basically saved himself with one hand, remember, on the ladder? Hanging on. The woman fell to her death because all these pieces fell on her head. And then if you remember, her niece was there, the 8-year-old niece, and she landed on her and survived. Got hurt, but survived. So these are the kind of things that, and that's why we brought these pieces, because depending on who's watching the show, and this is what we're going to talk about on your end, you guys got so much on your plate that how do you get this thing to be watched so that nobody's taking advantage of you? And that is confidence tests, checklists, proper oversight with engineers, not just the repair guys. Because if you leave this up to the repair guys to be judge and jury, you're going to get a paint job. Because that's how you maximize profits. You basically paint more of it than you repair it. And if nobody's watching and nobody's pulling permits, guess what happens? So that's one of the things we're going to discuss today, just how much, what the abuse has been in the past 75 years. In that, 75 years ago plus when this was built, 5 years later nobody was inspecting and certifying. 25 years later, nobody was inspecting and certifying because they didn't need it. A fire escape like this will last 25 years. 50 years later, because you never really inspected it before, you kind of just winged it. But now this grandma's 75 years old, and it's you guys that step on this to fight a fire, take out children. So it's all really about safety. But we wanted to show you, and we were able to capture this thing from a building and say, okay, until you really see I can show you pictures, but until you see what's actually out there. And when you start walking around, you'll start seeing things like this, that some guy basically said is certifiable, and it's nice and shiny black. Like, that's not certifiable. I went to a class that says if I've got any rust in a connection, like a rust jack and bulging, this is not a certified. You'll question a connection or a fire escape. And then the true ultimate piece that's right in the code, it says you got to load test it. Meaning, if 5 of your guys weigh 1,500 pounds, then I want to put 100 pounds per square foot on this thing and prove it to me that it can handle the load. The other thing though is we also say this can actually pass a load test even in its present condition. So it'll even hold, but the problem is you can't load test something that has visual defects. So it's not like load test anything. You can only load test things that have visually passed the test. Just like you guys when you guys load test your ladders. You don't load test bent ladders. If it has a visual problem, like, hey, we're not even going to spend money load testing this bent ladder because it's already bent. It's the same thing with fire escape. You don't just load test anything because in some cases it'll actually pass. But what you want to do is you want to say, did it pass a confidence test? And the confidence test is a verification that 100% of all the connections are free of rust. And that you have an opinion from a professional that says, if a load test was to be conducted, I approve this for the load test. That's just an alarm, you can shut off. Perfect. So that's why we brought the piece in, that's why we'll teach the class. That's mainly the thing we're going to be talking about today is, how can you simplify this so that it's a checklist item? Can you guys see just exactly what everybody out there is hiding now? This wasn't the case 50 years ago. It is the case today. because this is, we were involved in some cases that firemen fell through fire escapes, and we were told that it takes to grow a 1/4 inch, you need to leave it alone for 25 years. To grow 1/2 inch of rust, you need 50 years plus of growth, untouched, don't touch it. So we have fire escapes in rust that if you, to look at the various pieces, including where the tread is,
My guess is that 90% of the fire escapes in the city are over 50 years old.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Say so, yeah.
So this is the common,
They really, how often are they constructed now? Very rare.
very rare.
Cisco, can you look at a fire escape and date it? Say, hey, back in 1920, that's what they did.
Yeah, you can date it based on the type of grading.
Yeah.
When you see grading like this, gussets and square head bolts, you're looking at something that's 50 to 75 years old. If you see rivets, it's 75 to 100 years old. And then if you start seeing hex heads, there's an old hex head, it's a smaller, standard hex heads, yeah, that's a hex head. That's a fairly, that's within 25 to 50 years old. And the grading too, the new grading doesn't have these through rods. These are the rods that when they give way, your foot gets stuck in here, now you got somebody stuck on a fire escape. So we'll go through, you got the lead paint, see all this orange? That's lead paint. The EPA now says you can't weld, you can't do this on a fire escape that's older than 1978. So this was not supposed to be done anyway, but this is what was a standard repair. You'd come in here and you wouldn't remove the rust, you just give it a weld. That would last 1 to 2 years. And then in a 5-year cycle, it would fail again. So these fire escapes were never passing because somebody just kept coming in and just doing welds. You're supposed to, if you look down here, you can see the head here, but there's no shaft. And you can put your hand back here and there's no tail. Yet, this is what ice jacking does, and rust jacking, it just pops all these things. But some of these guys would just come in here and pop a weld on it. That's not certified. Until you cleanse the connection, and that's what we'll cover today. What is the term in the code, 1001.3, it says examine, test, or certified. We're going to give you what our interpretation is of that, what the codes should be interpreting that as, and how can we get the word guarantee for you and for the tenants. The word certified or opinion letter is what we're not going to be talking much about.
Well, you know that usually it's only under the last circumstances that we'll use a fire escape.
Yeah, I know.
We'll use a towel or even a stick before we'll do that.
Right.
Only because of what's, actually in most of our study guides or whatever for promotion, things that have to be brought into how you should approach them if you use them because of what's going on, and that what resort they should be using. It's way down the list.
Yeah. They, when we teach this class, we always say that the gray-haired guys tell the guys that are just coming in case of fire, don't use the, right?
Exactly.
And one of the reasons that there was a breakdown that happens because in about 40 out of 50 states, fire prevention actually keeps an eye on these things. In 10 out of 50 states, it's the building department that keeps an eye on this. And there's been this disconnect in that so if the building department is not on these every day, if you can imagine, we joke a lot of times, if the landlords were forced to collect their rent through the fire escape, you know what I'm saying, and get it through the window, you get a lot more fire escapes fixed. If the building department could only enter buildings and examine buildings through the fire escape, this would be
Or the same in the fire department.
right. And the fire department, they couldn't basically get into a building. So we teach little tricks that basically, for example, on your end, you guys have the smoke detector sign off?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that just as an add-on for now by pencil, but then you make it part of your sheets on the new reprints. You have a simple line in there that says, I just came in to check your smokes. All I need from you now is a current certificate for that fire escape in the back so I can close this off. The guy goes, what's that? He hasn't done the 5-year inspection. You say, no problem. You sign this off. Here's your smoke pass. But by the way, the building department now is going to get a letter saying that as part of this smoke detector sign off, I did not get a copy of the fire escape affidavit. So you're going to be called by the fire department, and you got 30 days to meet the requirements.
The only problem with that is, most of the buildings in this city that would have fire escapes probably wouldn't even require smoke inspections from us, because they're
occupancy
rental units.
Yeah, for occupancy or for the yearly.
We do certificate of inspection, that's supposed to be done. A lot of buildings those are done.
Well, and that's where, if you have a certificate of inspection,
Would be a good way, 'cause that's.
you add this to the checklist. Where's your current?
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you get to the front of the building, you just say, do you have an internal or external means of egress? external, and you're at the front. You say, great, I'm gonna do my whole inspection, just give me a copy of that
So I'm
certificate.
thinking that's the best way for us to flag it, because we're gonna go out there anyway,
Right.
we just add that onto the list.
Add on to the list, where's your current certificate?
Residential.
Right, right, right.
The city of Lowell will send out a letter with the tax records, and I can give you a copy of that letter that
Yeah,
says,
that'd be
hey, this is what we're doing now, we're on top of this, please, if you have a fire escape, give us a, they voluntarily ask people to volunteer the certificates right away. Otherwise, they made them aware that it's now a priority for them, and I can show you a copy of that letter so that you guys can just copy and paste and send that out. So that went out with a tax,
How old is
bills.
this one, do you know? How old
This
is
is original, this was probably at least 75 years old. This was on a school here in the area. Not Medford, but,
It wouldn't surprise me either.
no, we actually use this to basically show that these exist in and around your area. So
Sure, yeah.
everywhere, building inspectors, fire inspectors, don't forget, this was on a school with to kindergarten to 8th grade. And this fire escape was walked every year by the fire department that checked off the building, and by the building department every year that checked off the building. Yet, this went right to the recess, was used every day 4 to 5 times. And you know who flagged this?
Kids?
By the kids. You know who flagged this to switch it up? The maintenance guy. He came up and said, listen, I already spoke to the director of the school, and I'm telling you, we gotta flip this thing out here because it's not even worth fixing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And why the fire department or the building department has not flagged this thing is beyond me, but it doesn't matter, I want it swapped out. So it wasn't even an official violation that caused this to be swapped out, and I have photographs of the before and after. The best thing about this fire escape that I got 2 sections. This is the upper section the door came out this way. And then it went down into the ground, single, 1 flight of stairs, 12 feet off the ground. The other piece that I have that I couldn't bring today, it would run into the tar, rotting out, tread. So I was actually able to save it like a piece of cake. This is very rare that you have to bring a fire escape into a room.
Because I'm thinking a good amount of these, the older buildings, they're access to a window sometimes, right?
Right.
If they do change this.
Come on, you guys.
So if they do change this, then we have to, by code, we'd have to have.
I think you guys are all supposed to be sitting up here, so if you want, we can already start moving there.
You know what I mean, if there's a